In January 1940, over 100 Soviet soldiers were found dead on a frozen Finnish mountain. Their bodies were torn apart, limbs scattered across the blood-soaked snow. Some were buried headfirst in the frozen ground. The Finns never took credit for the kills. The Soviets never reported what happened. And the most disturbing part? Every Finnish unit was accounted for that night, stationed over a mile away. So here's the question that's haunted military historians for over 80 years. What really killed those men on Kibini Mountain? Picture this, November 30th, 1939. The Soviet Union launches a massive invasion of Finland. 450,000 Soviet soldiers pour across the border, backed by 2,000 tanks. Standing against them, just 160,000 Finnish soldiers. The world expected Finland to fall within weeks. But Finland had something the Soviets didn't expect. Not just their legendary snipers, like Simo Häyhä, not just their ski commandos, who moved like ghosts through the forest. They had the land itself. And according to local legends, the land had guardians. The Kibini Mountains rise over 3,000 feet above the Kola Peninsula, sacred to the indigenous Sami people. For centuries, they warned outsiders, don't go to those mountains. Evil spirits lived there. Creatures they called the Otso, the bear man, and the Viransusi, a type of werewolf. The Soviets laughed at these warnings. Colonel Lauri Tiainen of the 12th Division had a strange order. When his scouts reported Soviet patrols heading toward Kibini Mountain, he gave a strange order: let them have it. His men thought he was crazy. You never give the enemy the high ground. Unless you know something, they don't. Think about this tactical situation. The Finns controlled every approach to Kibini Mountain. They had perfect defensive positions, yet they deliberately left it undefended. Colonel Tiainen positioned his 8,000 men along a 70-mile front. His strategy was brilliant. Control the valleys, set ambushes along the forest trails, and create what he called a collapsing bag defense. Small four-man commando teams would hit and run, drawing the enemy deeper into kill zones. But the mountain? He left it wide open. A Soviet reconnaissance company, over 100 men, marched right past hidden Finnish positions. The Finns, in perfect winter camouflage, watched them from just yards away, counted every man, noted their equipment, and did nothing. The Soviets took the mountain on what we believe was the second week of January 1940. They set up observation posts, perfect visibility over the valley below. They must have thought they'd outsmarted the Finns. Here's where the story takes its first dark turn. Before climbing the mountain, the Soviet company had passed through a Sami village. The locals, people who'd lived in these lands for thousands of years, begged them not to go up there. They spoke of ancient evils, of things that hunted in the winter darkness. The Soviet political officer reportedly threatened to shoot them for spreading counter-revolutionary superstition. But consider this, the Finns, who grew up with these stories, who knew every inch of this terrain, who desperately needed every tactical advantage, they still wouldn't occupy that mountain. What did they know that the Soviets didn't? The temperature dropped to minus 40 degrees, the kind of cold where exposed skin freezes in minutes. The Soviet company had been on the mountain for several days when it began. First came the howling. Now, wolves were common in these forests. Both armies posted guards against them. But the Finnish soldiers stationed a mile away reported something unusual. The howling didn't sound right. It was too loud, too close, and it seemed to come from multiple directions at once. Then came the gunfire. For 2 straight nights, the valley echoed with the sound of battle. Rifle fire, machine guns, explosions from grenades. The Finns assumed another unit had engaged the enemy. Radio calls went out asking who was fighting. No one answered. The strangest part? The shooting wasn't organized. It wasn't the disciplined fire of soldiers in combat. It was chaotic, desperate, like men firing at shadows in all directions. Dawn of the 3rd day. A Finnish patrol moves forward. 4 men, moving carefully through the deep snow. It takes them hours to reach the lower slopes of the mountain. What they found defied explanation. Bodies everywhere, but not killed by bullets. These men were literally torn apart, arms ripped from sockets, heads separated from bodies. Some corpses were found 20 feet up in the trees. The patrol leader later reported finding 1 Soviet soldier buried head first in the frozen ground so hard it would take a pickaxe to break through. The man's legs stuck straight up from the snow. Spent shell casings covered the ground, thousands of rounds fired. Blood painted the snow in a radius of nearly 100 meters. But here's what made no sense. No enemy bodies, no Finnish bodies, no dead animals. Whatever they'd been shooting at, they didn't kill it. So what really happened on that mountain? The official Soviet records from this incident, if they exist, have never been released. Stalin reportedly had several officers shot for incompetence shortly after, though the exact reasons were never specified. The Finnish military records are equally vague. Major General Hägglund's only documented response was, "They met their fate, however it arrived. I would decorate the men involved if I knew who they were." But think about the evidence. Over 100 trained soldiers, armed with rifles and machine guns, firing thousands of rounds, all dead. No enemy casualties found. 3 theories have emerged over the decades. First, the rational explanation. A massive wolf pack, driven by starvation, attacked the camp. The soldiers, panicking in the darkness, shot each other in friendly fire. But this doesn't explain the bodies in the trees or buried in frozen ground. Second, the psychological explanation. Mass hysteria brought on by extreme cold, exhaustion, and fear. The soldiers hallucinated, turned on each other. But organized military units don't just fall apart like that. And it doesn't explain the physical evidence. Third, the explanation the Sami people have always maintained. The Soviets disturbed something ancient on that mountain, something that had protected these lands long before armies and borders existed. Remember, Finland lost only 16,725 soldiers in combat during the entire Winter War. The Soviets lost over 200,000. Many froze to death, but some deaths were never explained. The Winter War ended on March 13, 1940. Finland kept its independence, though it lost some territory. The Kebeni Mountains remained in the contested zone. And to this day, locals avoid those peaks in winter. The Winter War produced many mysteries, stories of impossible survivals, unexplained victories, and yes, inexplicable deaths. Whether you believe in ancient guardians or think there's a rational explanation we haven't found yet, one thing is certain: war pushes human experience to its absolute limits, where reality itself seems to bend. These historical mysteries remind us that even in our modern world, there are still questions without answers, stories that challenge what we think we know. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, consider subscribing to hear more hidden histories from World War II. Drop a comment below. What do you think really happened on that mountain? And remember, Sometimes the most incredible stories are the ones that history tries to forget. Because in the depths of winter, in the midst of war, when men are pushed beyond exhaustion and reason, perhaps anything becomes possible, even werewolves.